let's do it. Episode number 4, Wings Up Weekly, brand new Tennessee Tech Athletics video podcast. Really looking forward to our guest today because although the games have stopped and the sports have been canceled for right now, the academics certainly have not. So we are speaking with Dr. Leveda Dexter, the Assistant Athletic Director for Academics and Student Welfare. Leveda, great to see you. How you doing?
Oh, it's so good to see you, Dylan. I'm great, but I'm certainly missing the social interaction that we are used to on a daily basis. So I'm thrilled to be here with you today.
Absolutely. I am really looking forward to this. And we're going to come out swinging here on Wings Up Weekly. We're about to give you some insider info to Tennessee Tech athletics. So right now would be the time to turn up the volume because I've been told that every senior staff meeting, every weekly meeting begins with you telling a joke. Are my sources correct on this?
Your sources are correct, Dylan. But there's an addition to that. So in addition to just being the senior administration meeting every week, it's also happened with every student athlete that I've talked to for the last 6 weeks.
Really?
So it's been my thing for quarantine is to tell a joke.
Well, that's
okay, are you
perfect.
ready, Dylan?
Let's hear it. You got to start us off here, Wings Up Weekly, with a joke. What do we got?
Okay, why did the ice cream truck wreck?
Why did the ice cream truck, what was it?
Wreck.
Why did the ice cream truck wreck? You got me.
Because of the rocky road. That's a personal favorite because if you know me at all, you know I love my ice cream.
That's good. That's good.
We'll start off with that one. I can't promise you that we won't have another one intermittently through this podcast, just because I have enjoyed them so much.
Well, I mean, that's great. I love that. I think we finally figured out, it took us only till episode number 4, on as to how to properly start Wings Up Weekly.
Exactly.
That was awesome. When did you start deciding to do this? Like, take us through the origins of the jokes.
Yeah, so I started it a little bit before we left for quarantine, just like randomly as student athletes came in the office. So our office is in the University Center, and so we're kind of main hub of campus. And we have student athletes come in all the time through our office. And so I had started it a little bit before then, but then when we went into quarantine with the COVID-19 pandemic, I just decided it was something, like we all just need a little bit of something to laugh at and just something to make us a little bit happy. And so I just started it and it sort of steamrolled from there. And it's funny because every student athlete I talk to, I say, hey, do you want to hear the joke of the week? But the reality is, even if they don't want to hear it, they're going to hear it. So I asked the question knowing the answer already.
That's great. That's great. Not just a comedian, not just the Assistant Athletic Director for Academics and Student Welfare, but now we can add doctor to the list. Congratulations are certainly in order. You just received your doctorate.
Thank you so much. So like many of our graduating seniors that were supposed to walk the stage on Saturday, I was in that same boat. So on April 8th, I finished my doctorate in global sport leadership from East Tennessee State University. And so my dream has came true. I'm finally a doctor. And it was an amazing journey. And I'm just very excited and honored to be able to do that. Like I said, it's been a dream of mine for a really, really long time. And so to have that complete has been a huge relief. But needless to say, I've been able to relate to our student athletes through this pandemic because I was dealing with the same thing. My classes were already online, but to deal with it in the midst of everything that we had going on. So it did make me a little bit more relatable, I think, to our student athletes.
Well, that's great. And congratulations again. It kind of leads us to the next aspect of this. Is how have you been able to stay connected with the Tennessee Tech student athletes? Of course, one of the things we do here early on each episode of Wings Up Weekly is whoever we're talking to, we want to hear from the team. So last week, Coach Roseman, Tennessee Tech women's basketball. 2 weeks ago was Coach A with football. Your team is essentially all of the Golden Eagles student athletes. So what can you tell us about how they're doing?
Yes. So I would be doing a due disservice if I didn't say a huge thank you to my staff, because without them, it would be impossible for us to do what we're doing. So Kara Phillips, Samantha Bates, Virginia Lewis, and Marilyn Borsch Jensen have been incredible in this process. I also want to make sure to give a shout out to not only our head coaches, but all of our assistant coaches, because like you said, we have a huge team. So in academics, we are responsible for all of our student athletes, which is almost 300 student athletes. And so when we talk about sports and the importance of teamwork, teamwork has made the dream work this semester for sure. And not that it doesn't always, but when we're dealing with something so unusual, it has been incredibly amazing to watch our staff kind of rise above. And so just a huge, huge kudos and thank you to Samantha, Kara, Virginia, and Marilyn, especially as we've moved through this. So when we found out we were going to go all online, I think my first reaction was just pure shock and the unknown, the fear of the unknown, but also optimistic that it's something we could handle. So it wasn't anything that we weren't going to be able to handle. I think for me, I needed to take a step back and process what that looked like. And then we developed a plan. So our staff got together. We identified 80 student athletes that we wanted to make sure that we communicated with on a weekly or biweekly basis. So but for those 80 student athletes, we split those up amongst the staff, and we do weekly check-ins with them. And so every advisor has a different way of doing that. I'm very social, so I wanted to see their faces. So we did Zoom meetings or Microsoft Team meetings or FaceTime. We did text messages, emails. There was a variety of ways that we communicated with those student athletes every week. And so they had to talk us through what they were doing in each class. And in some instances, they would share their screen so that we could help answer questions that they may have about submissions or some, technological issues. Technology, Dylan, is an amazing thing. Obviously, we couldn't do what we do without it, but it's not flawless. And so we've certainly had to work through some issues with technology as we went through this process, but overall, it's been really well. So we've done that. 2 weeks ago, Coach Roseman, so every week I set in on Coach Roseman's women's basketball team Zoom meeting and kind of just give them all academic updates and gave them the opportunity to ask me questions. So 2 weeks ago, Coach Roseman said, I'm going to challenge you all to reach out to someone you haven't talked to since we've gone into quarantine. And I'm like, that's a lot. So I accepted the challenge. And I am still in the process of reaching out to all 285-ish student athletes. And so a lot of them have been FaceTime. There's been some text messages and emails because, as you probably know, we have student athletes all over the country and all over the world. So we're in different time zones. So sometimes email or text messages have been better. I have less than 100 student athletes left. In my mission, that's what I called it. It's my mission to speak with them all, and they've gone really well. Some of them have been 5 minutes long, and some of them have been 25 minutes long. So they've varied. To kind of give you an idea of what those FaceTimes have looked like. So I asked them obviously about academics. We're in finals week. We are in the home stretch of what we are trying to accomplish. So how are your classes going? How many finals do you have left? Are you prepared? So that's the initial conversation. And then I've encouraged them all to give me a word of the week. So it can be anything that they want it to be, but it's whatever's on their heart. And I've seen a little bit of everything. Perseverance has been by far the #1 word. It's been the most popular. But I've also had finish and resilience and balance and hope. I may or may not have also had like bagel and barnacle and some random ones was that way too. And that was fine. I said, I'm like, whatever you want to give me, just your word of the week. And then they have to give me a number, 1 through whatever number I have given them, because what I did was I put every student athlete's name into an Excel sheet that's associated with a random number. So if I talk to Bryce Martin on the football team, Bryce gave me a number, and then whoever's number was with that name was the next person that I called. So just to kind of switch it up a little bit and keep things fresh. So I wasn't calling all of one team at one time. So we've been doing that. And then, of course, I shared with them the joke of the week. I don't know. Are you ready do you want another joke?
Hey, why not? Let's do it.
Do you think that's I think that's
I think so.
Okay. Why does a golfer need 2 pairs of pants?
I think I know this one.
Let's hear it.
I think because there's a hole in one.
In case they get a hole in one.
Well,
so our golfers, they for the most part rose to the occasion and got that one right. So I was really proud of them.
Well, I mean, that's great, just because I'm trying to, for all of us, this can be such a trying time with everything going on. I'm trying to think back what it would be like to be an 18 to 22-year-old and having your college experience altered as much as it has been. And then, of course, the athletic component of this, and especially if you're a spring athlete and having your season kind of taken away from you abruptly like that. How have many of these student athletes been able to hold up based on some of the conversations you've had with them?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Dylan. That's certainly been part of the conversation we've had. Obviously, I wanted to make sure that they know they've got what they've got to do academically. But that's really, quite honestly, a small portion of what we're dealing with. Because the reality is our student athletes, just like students across the country, are dealing with, potential family members who have been affected by COVID-19, the actual virus. We've had some student athletes whose parents have lost their jobs, or, there's just been a wide range of things that our student athletes are having to deal with. So yes, they are certainly missing their sport. I think they're certainly missing being in the gym. But Coach Matt Hewitt has been incredible in providing workouts to every team to keep them kind of on par with being able to socially distance and still get their workouts in. But overall, I think for the most part, our student athletes are very social. And so I think they miss one another. I won't say they all miss me, but maybe a few of them do. But I think they just miss the pattern. So student athletes are very used to waking up, workouts, practice, class, whatever their schedule is. And so, we're talking a day, it all changed like that. And so I think it's definitely been a process. I think moving online to online courses, they've had to learn how to be a little more organized. And so what we focused on in our conversations has been, what are the positives of this? What have we learned? What can we take away from this? Yes, we know it's a struggle and it's hard, but what have we learned from it? What have been the positives of it? And those have been really, really good conversations that we've had.
So one of the things that we've heard so much throughout this quarantine and social distancing, of course, for those fortunate enough to have a job, is working from home. And I've had countless conversations with friends and family. Some of them have told me, wow, it's so difficult to do this. I work so much better in an office setting. Again, I go back to being a 19-year-old. It can be tough enough to focus in a classroom setting. What about focusing right now, whether it's at home or whether you live with other friends and all those potential distractions? Have you had conversations about that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. And that's been a struggle for some of them. Some of them have been fine, but the reality is a lot of them have moved home to their parents and to their siblings. And there's been a lot of times where I've had phone calls I can hear people in the background and I'm like, hey, who's that? And a lot of times they'll jump on the FaceTime with us and see. But I do think that has been a challenge because while the library is open on campus and we do still have some student athletes in town, the majority of our student athletes have gone home and don't have access to a library or that quiet space that they're used to. Now, I think the beauty of it all, Dylan, is that our student athletes are resilient and they have just a ton of integrity and grit to them. So I think that they are finding a way to get it done. But does it mean that they haven't had their struggles? I'm not so sure. I think that there's been distractions that they are not used to, and atmospheres and things that they certainly have been different than what they ever thought would be when we started this spring semester.
Well, you said it earlier. This is the home stretch. This is finals week. Regardless if there were sports or not going on, this would always be one of the most important weeks of the year. So, what have been some of the conversations? What are some of the things that you've been discussing now to these student athletes with it being finals week right now?
Absolutely. And I think it's hard because we know had the semester be normal, we would be seeing everybody this week because everybody would be returning textbooks and everybody would be coming in to do their kind of goodbye farewell before they leave for the summer. And so that's, I mean, that weighs on my mind. Like I know that that is the case. So yeah, as far as finals go, what we've talked about is finish strong. Like what we don't want to happen is we've had 5 weeks of a very unusual situation, but we don't want to see what happened. We don't want these 5 weeks to be something that we're having to deal with in 6 months or in 9 months from an eligibility perspective. So finish strong. Our students on Tennessee Tech's campus do have the option of taking a pass fail with courses, and so there's a lot of complicated conversations that we're having with that. And essentially our message to our student athletes are, if that's something you think you might want to do, you have to get in contact with us first to make sure that's a right move for you. So for me, probably one of the hardest things throughout all of this pandemic, Dylan, is there have been so many more questions than answers. Not that I always have the answer to every question that they have, but typically I can get on the phone and call someone to figure it out, typically. And in this time, we just have a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. And so I think that's been hard for me personally to not be able to give them that information. But another popular word has been patience. I think that's been a soccer word of the week. And I'm not sure that it's ever been more appropriate than it is right now, that we have to have patience, that the answers will come. We just have to wait for them to get to us.
One of the things you mentioned in that response was finishing strong. One of the elements in all of this is if you're a senior. I go back to the conversation we had with Coach Roseman last week, where she said that her heart went out to her two seniors, Anacia Wilkinson and Akia Harris. What has it been like to communicate with some of these seniors, especially those who, hey, this stretch of finals, that does it for college for me. So what have those interactions with those seniors during this unique time been about?
It's been hard. That's probably one of the hardest things, because we would reality be celebrating them on Saturday. We would be celebrating with them and their families. The good news is that celebration is still going to happen. We just don't know exactly when. So again, patience in knowing when that's going to be. I have talked to almost all of our seniors. Between student athletes and managers, support staff, we have almost 50 that will be graduating on Saturday. I have been in conversations with them because we typically would have a reception for those student athletes to get their graduation stoles or stashes. So I've had conversations with several of them about those. And really my message has been, I know this has not been your ideal semester. This is not the way we ever thought that your last semester at Tennessee Tech would be. But we just have to focus on the positives of what it is. You are still graduating from an amazing university with a great degree, and that's something to be proud of. And we will celebrate that in due time. Like, we will still celebrate that. It just isn't going to be in the way that we thought it would traditionally be. But my heart does go out to them. I talked to a senior this morning. Her word of the week was future, which I thought was only appropriate because she's focusing now on the future and what that looks like. So just to kind of encourage them not to, it's we can't help it. It is what it is. But we will find a time to celebrate with our student athletes that are graduating.
Without a doubt. And I think the idea of resiliency, something that I've seen out of the Tennessee Tech student athletes so much on the courts, on the fields, on the diamond, what have you, but you're really seeing that now, not just academic wise, but how they're able to handle this. Every conversation I've had with a coach or the head coach, assistant coach, administration. So that's definitely something very positive in that regard. One of the things now that we discussed a little bit early on, and of course, the transition from to what it was to online learning and remote learning and online classes and all that. That, of course, is being seen throughout the entire country. And it's such a great move. Recently, I started thinking, like, wow, how much must have gone into making this possible? The transition seemingly has gone pretty smooth. What can you tell us about how online learning has gone and how it was able to become possible?
Absolutely. And Dylan, I think that the word thanks has to be the thing that we talk about the most. And I am so thankful to our university administration, Dr. Oldham, everyone on the way down, but our faculty members have been incredible. They really have been amazing. I know how much work we spent trying to get ready for this transition. I cannot even fathom how much time that our faculty members spent on recreating their syllabi and recreating their classes to move them online. A lot of our classes already had an online component, but there were some that didn't. And they certainly didn't have lectures recorded or things moved ahead. So I feel like we at Tennessee Tech are incredibly fortunate and blessed to have such strong leadership, but also just amazing faculty members who, we talk about being out of your element. I mean, this is something brand new for everybody. And I just feel like Tennessee Tech took it in stride and has just done incredibly well. As far as student athletes go and how we've transitioned to online, from day one, the thing that I said was communication has to be key in everything that we do. We know that there are going to be technological issues. That's a given. Wi-Fi is likely to go down when you're taking a test, or you're not going to be able to send a file, but that is never an excuse to just give up and stop. So if there is an issue, if you do have some kind of technological issue, they had to let us know, because we could always come in and help them, but we can't help if we didn't know about it. And so when we have had those instances and those situations, our faculty members have been very understanding, and have been very good to work with our student athletes to find an alternative way to make a submission. And I'm certain that that's been the case with all students on campus. And so I'm just very thankful for administration and faculty members and all their hard work that they have done in making this transition online.
Hey, you hit the nail on the head with that. Maybe call it the pessimist in me. That was one of the things I was thinking. If everything's online the way Wi-Fi is, if you're at home, even your dog tripping over a cord and all of a sudden there goes the internet, especially right now during final exams, what would be the protocol? What happens if the internet does go out during an exam?
Yeah, so perfect example, actually. Keyshawn Davidson, freshman men's basketball player. This past Sunday night, it's, 6:30 p.m. I get a phone call from him. I'm like, hey, Keyshawn, what's going on, bud? He's like, Miss Leveda, I was taking a biology exam, and the storms, so that we got storms on Sunday, which seems to be far too frequent right now, right? And he lost power. So only part of his questions saved. And he was like, what do I do? What do I do? And I was like, okay, well, you don't panic. That's what we don't do. And I will send an email on your behalf. I'll copy you on the email. And, we will make sure that it's taken care of. And the professor was beyond amazing. She went in and she's like, yep, I can see he completed them to this point, and then something happened. And so she reopened the exam, and he was allowed to finish the exam the next day. And so those are the kinds of things, and we've had several instances of those things. There were tornadoes in Chattanooga a couple weeks after the devastation that we experienced. And so we had student athletes that were in Chattanooga who went through tornadoes here in Cookeville, and then a couple weeks later went through tornadoes in Chattanooga, on top of COVID. So, nothing about this semester has been easy or normal. I don't even think we know what the word normal means anymore. But they've never used it as an excuse to just stop. And so that is what I'm probably as most proud of as anything, is just their dedication to their academic studies and making sure that we are able to work through whatever challenges are being thrown their way.
From the onset of our conversation here, Wings Up Weekly, you discussed meeting and talking with other coaches. I know that that's something that regardless of the situation, you're constantly and consistently communicating with coaching staffs and things like that. So during this time, what have some of those interactions been like? What are some of the things that you guys have focused on, that you've discussed? Of course, the coaching staffs, all of them here at Tennessee Tech, care so deeply about the success and the well-being of their student athletes.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about, Tennessee Tech and what that means to so many people, I think that's the word, people. It's the people that make it so wonderful. You always knew, I always knew that our coaches were invested in the well-being of our student athletes from a holistic approach. But when you go through something like COVID-19, you see it on a different level. And so I have talked with probably every coach that we have on staff at least once, if not multiple times throughout this crisis. One thing that we did going into this, Miss Kara Phillips created a weekly log and a daily log. And we sent that to the coaches, and we asked the coaches to have their student athletes fill that out and send that back to them. That was a way that we could kind of keep our eyes and our hands on our student athletes without having them here. And so they would fill those out. They would send those to the coaches. And it was kind of a snapshot of what their day looked like, and then also a snapshot of what their week was going to look like. So that was incredible. The coaches had lots of questions about those. But I hope at least that those were beneficial to them to be able to get those in from their student athletes and kind of see what that looked like. Coach Howes on the football staff, him and I and a couple of players, or actually one player, we've done a Zoom meeting every single week, basically like our WIN meetings. So we have a program that stands for Work Intensely Now. It's our WIN meetings. Coaches have WIN meetings with their student athletes every week. So we just basically moved that to an online platform, and we did that together. So unfortunately, Coach House had to sit through my weekly jokes as well. I don't know if that was a good thing or not, but he gave me a couple, so I guess he was on board with it. But those are the kinds of conversations I've sat in on team Zoom meetings. I have had text messages. I've had phone calls. Our coaches have been absolutely incredible through this point. And I think the thing that I love the most is, yes, they're checking on them academically, but they are at the end of the day, they are just generally concerned about their well-being and making sure that they are staying healthy and that they have everything that they need to just be able to function in this crazy time. And so just to see the love, let's use the word love and adoration that our student athletes have for our coaches, but really that our coaches have for our student athletes has been incredible.
Well, one of the things here on Wings Up Weekly that we've asked every guest on, Mark Wilson, Coach A, Coach Roseman, because the way that everyone is watching sports right now, old, historical, famous games, you've had this position now for a few years. Prior to that, Director of Marketing and Sales at Tennessee Tech Athletics. And then, of course, a student and graduated from Tennessee Tech.
Yep.
Seeing your fair share of Golden Eagle games throughout the years, what I want to know from you is what's one game or one moment or something that jumps out and sticks to you that you love to go back and rewatch or relive again?
Absolutely. Like everybody else has said, there are so many. There's so many. But I think probably in 2011, when we won the football championship, that was an incredible time to just be a part of Tennessee Tech athletics and to be able to celebrate with those coaches and with those student athletes and administration. Dylan, when I meet with recruits, and then every semester at the beginning of the semester, I tell every single student athlete, we have 2 goals for every student athlete that comes to Tennessee Tech, and that's to graduate with a diploma in one hand and a championship ring on the other. And so while there's a lot that goes into those 2 goals, we know that that's what we're working towards. Those are the things we're striving for. And so I think back to that 2011 football championship. I think back to the year that softball made a tremendous comeback at SIUE. Yes. and won the championship there. We were there. We were there.
Yeah.
Together.
Oh yeah.
Incredible. That was amazing. That was so much fun. we've had great success with tennis. I was blessed enough to be in Austin with baseball 2 years ago when we were in Austin, Texas for the super regionals. I could go on and on. But at the end of the day, every win, and I'm just proud of our student athletes for the way that they handle themselves on the court, field, track, course, etc., as well as the way they handle themselves in the classroom. I honestly am just so blessed to be able to be a part of it.
Without a doubt. And just hearing, unfortunately, I wasn't there in 2011. I got there just a little too late, but I've heard so much about that championship season. And then I remember the softball. Of course, you could forget baseball recently, but you're right. I mean, there have been just so many awesome Tennessee Tech contests. It's been fun to start thinking about and seeing these Golden Eagle flashbacks on ttsports.com. So
love them.
Yeah,
SID's doing a great job with those.
Yeah, that's been great. That's been great. What other things? Obviously, you've been super busy because you're trying to contact every single Tennessee Tech student athlete. And even though that the games have been canceled, the sports have stopped, academics have progressed on. But when you've had a little bit of free time, what are some of the things that you've been doing? I know I saw you tweeting about The Last Dance, so it looks like you've been watching that.
I have loved The Last Dance. I thought it was fabulous. Just FYI, episode 4 has been my favorite.
There you go.
Oh, what does Michael Jordan put on his toast?
What does Michael Jordan put on his toast?
Michael Jordan put Space Jam on his toast. Shout out to Crystal Kelly for that one.
That was like such a good transition. We're just talking. That was well done.
It just goes through the joke. I'm telling you. I think I may start some stand up. Maybe. No, I'm kidding. I won't do that. I will not do that. I've loved The Last Dance. So the other thing that we've done on some of our calls is I've asked our student athletes, what are you guys watching? Like, you got free time on your hands. What are you doing? What are you watching? And so based on their suggestions, I have my Netflix watching has increased tremendously. So I've finished All American, which was my favorite. I loved that. I've watched Outer Banks. I'm watching Ozark now, and it's super intense. And but based off recommendations from our student athletes and coaches, I have definitely taken advantage of the Hulu. I have a confession, Dylan. I love jigsaw puzzles.
Oh yeah, okay.
And my precious mom and dad bought me this huge box of jigsaw puzzles, and I'm through like 4 of those already. So I've been doing that, and then but just really just spending a lot of time kind of reflecting on everything. It's hard for us in athletics to stop. And my entire career has been in athletics essentially. And so it's really been challenging for me to kind of just take a step back and just not do anything and not feel guilty about it when I do. And so I'm still working on that. I haven't perfected that by any stretch of the imagination. But you know, we will likely never experience anything like what we're going through again in our existence. And so to take this time to kind of self-reflect and take a deep breath and focus on the things that really are at the core important to us, I think has been incredible. So I think just to, a little bit of self-care, a little bit of self-love, and just kind of get through it.
Well, Leveda, I mean, I've really enjoyed this conversation here on Wings Up Weekly. It has been so good to hear your perspective on things because, like we said a couple different times on this episode, the sports have stopped and the games have been canceled, but the academics have progressed on. And every coach I've spoke to, whether it's been on this podcast or whether it's been in person, and of course the administration as well, has sung your praises, has sung your staff's praises. So it really has been awesome to get the chance to talk to you. Before we let you go, though, we have to end how we started. I need one more joke to close us out.
You got it. I will say, Dylan, before I give you the last joke, I do want to say a special thank you to our doctors, nurses, first responders, all of those people in the front line, our grocery store workers that are keeping us fed, our farmers, and especially to our former student athletes who are in the medical field. I know that they are doing some incredible things. And when we talk about student athletes and the the potential that they have, not only while they're here at Tennessee Tech, but in the future. You know, we have some former student athletes who are living that life right now. And so just a huge special thank you to all of them, and to our senior administration. I have not given them nearly enough credit as they deserve, and kind of leading us through. Mark Wilson's been instrumental in kind of leading us through this process. And so just a huge thank you to all of them for all of their efforts. It's truly been amazing to watch. Okay, so this was last week's joke of the week, and quite frankly, probably my favorite. So Dylan, what do you call a funny mountain?
What do you call a funny mountain? Let's hear it.
Hilarious.
These get me more than anyone who knows me. These get me more than you can even imagine. That's great. Hilarious.
I've probably told that 80 times over the last week and a half, and I have laughed every single time. Like every time. It just makes me giggle. So.
Well, I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna steal all these jokes from you.
Do,
so
yes.
I've got that. Maybe we'll work them into some broadcasts next year. That'll be the thing. Now, love it.
I can send you any that you want. Absolutely.
Please. Well, Leveda, this has been awesome. Again, thank you for everything that you do with Tennessee Tech Athletics, and a special thanks for helping prepare so many of these student athletes for finals and just the last several weeks of what we've been dealing with. So thank you, and appreciate you joining us here on Wings Up Weekly.
It's my honor. Dylan, thank you so much for all you're doing. I appreciate you very much.
Thanks, Leveda. We'll close it out right now. Wings Up Weekly.